So I'm going to start this video off a little bit different. I'm going to kind of go through where the Donners camped at, or possibly camped at, I guess, on their way through the Wasatch Mountains. I had spent some time researching this, going out, reading journals, and reading other articles, as well as talking to other people online about where possible camps were that the Donners may have stayed. And I threw together this little map on Google Earth using all these resources I had found. And mostly the path that I've drawn here, I got off of some old maps that I was able to overlay onto Google Earth, as well as using, like I said, journals, and as well as using the map that the National Parks has on National Historic Trails. So I know this isn't spot on, but I think it's kind of fairly close. So when the Donners left Fort Bridger on July 31st of 1846, their first camp is thought to be right here. Now, if you follow James Reed's journals, it actually puts it like back over in this area, which was a popular camping area. But the problem with that is if you follow James Reed's journals, they start, if you follow the mileage that he mentions, it starts to get off. So he'll mention, like, we stayed camped at Bear River. Well, if you follow his journal entries as far as his mileage goes, and he mentions that they camp at Bear River, which is right here, his mileage has them back over in here. And it's also thought that James Reed made entries into his journal days after the fact. But you got to think also that if he's postponing his journal entries, that is room for error, but also the fact that they didn't have odometers back then. I mean, basically, if they wanted to know their mileage, they would tie a rag around a spoke on a wagon wheel, and someone had to sit there and count the revolutions of this rag. So there's definitely some discrepancy in there on his mileage. So luckily, on most of these journals, they tell you where they camped at. You know, we camped on the banks of Bear River, or such as up here, this camp here. So James Reed mentions in his journal that they camped. Says, we started this morning on the Cutoff route by south of Salt Lake. And then he mentions they left the Fort Bridger, and there's several nice ice cold springs that they passed. Then he mentions we encamped at the foot of the first steep hill going west. And a lot of people believe that the first steep hill going west is going to be this right here, which is called Bridger Butte. So they feel like they camped right in this area somewhere. So one thing I do want to mention right off the bat is these blue pins are going to be the general location of where the Donner Party might have camped. The orange pins are just informational things. And then on further down, you'll find some of these that are orange that have these numbers on them, like this one here, NHTA1. And that just stands for the National Historic Trail A1 stop. EC11, that'll be the Echo Canyon pamphlet, the number 11 stop. And LH, of course, Lincoln Highway pamphlet, stop number 2. And then it tells you what is at that stop. Then when I click on the pin, all I did was copied down what was in the pamphlet into the notes here. So the reason I did this was because when we were doing this, we didn't want to have to want the hassle of dealing with all 3 of those pamphlets. And this way I was able to take this, put it on a tablet. We could just click on the little pins and tells us what we need to be doing or what we need to be looking for at that location. If you're interested in getting this map, I'll put a link in the description below. And if you want to use this map, you're more than welcome to. It just made it easier for us to follow it. So let's get back over here to the camps. Now, one thing we did do, we were going to try to go to as many of these camps as we could, but once we got looking at it, we were like, yeah, we're just not going to have time. A lot of these are in really remote areas, and just taking the time to drive back on these back roads would be quite a while. We did kind of drive down here just to see the foot of Bridger Butte in this area. And then we did come over into this area. It was pretty easy to get to. Basically just hopped back on I-80 and took this, I think this is exit 24 right here. And you just go under the bridge and take this here little dirt road. And it'll take you on back in there. And then you just have this historical site. There's a kiosk there. It just tells you about, you can actually see swells and stuff going across through there. If you come on further down this road, you'll come to an area here where you'll come to the Muddy Creek Camp, and you can actually get over here to Catherine Jones Bennett's grave. She was a Mormon pioneer woman who passed away and was buried in this location. There's a kiosk at both of these as well. So very interesting area in here to, if you get the chance to kind of come back here and look. But that was about as much of the backcountry stuff that we did. I wish we'd had time to do more, but unfortunately we did not. This road is not that bad of a dirt road. I wouldn't do it if it was wet, but we were in a little Hyundai Kona, and we didn't have no problems whatsoever getting back here. So we'll get back now to the Donner Party's camp. So August the 1st, they pull out of here, and they make camp in this general area. According to James Reed's journals, said they left camp early that morning and passed through several valleys that were well watered with plenty of grass. And they encamped at the head of Iron Spring Valley. That area, Iron Spring Valley, is now known as Pioneer Hollow. And it's this area right here, which is just above what they call Spring Valley, which is back down in this area. So on August 2nd, they pack up from here. And in the journal, he mentions this morning left camp late on account of an ox being missing. Crossed over a high ridge or mountain with tolerable rough road, and camped on Bear River. And that would be right in this area here. Now, he does go on to mention about them missing a creek where they should have turned right at a creek and stuff. All right, so Monday 3rd, they're packing up here at Bear River, and they left encampment, traveled a tolerable rough road, crossing several high hills, very high hills, and encamped at the head of a larger valley with a fine little running stream passing by the edge of our camp. Cattle, plenty of grass. So right here he mentioned something that kind of confuses me. The county appears Morehill West. The only thing I can make out of this is when you read part of the journal from Charles Stanton, who added a note to a letter. Charles Stanton was another individual who was in the Donner Party. So in this letter that Charles Stanton wrote, he mentioned, I may not have another opportunity of sending you letters till I reach California. We take a new route to California, never traveled before this season. Consequently, our route is over a new and interesting region. We are now in the Bear River Valley, in the midst of the Bear River Mountains, the summits of which are covered with snow. As I am now writing, we are cheered by a warm summer sun. while but a few miles off, the snow-covered mountains are glittering in its beams. So the only thing I can make out of the hail and off to the west is they're seeing snow already on these mountains that they're fixing to have to head through. So August 3rd, they're heading out of the Bear River Valley, and they make camp over here on August 3rd. And they mentioned, or I should say, a lot of folks believe in this area, the little stream they're talking about is what is called Yellow Creek. And this is Yellow Creek running right down through here. So this kind of would be the general area where they camped. All right, so August 4th, pick up camp and they head out. It says this day left our camp about 2 o'clock, made this day about 8. Our camp was this day in Red Valley Fork of the Weaver. So what we call Echo Canyon nowadays, they called Red Run Valley. Their camp on August 4th would have been probably in this general area right here. I'm not 100% sure on this, but it was at the upper end of Echo Canyon, right around the present route of Interstate 80. And then from here, it's pretty much going to follow the Interstate 80 corridor all the way down to Weaver Canyon, or that Weaver River Valley down there. And most of what I read was the trail pretty much, in places it went right over where I-80 is, some places, it went in between the railroad track and I-80. Sometimes it was a little higher, sometimes a little lower, but you're going to be traveling the same basic path that they went down through. So none of the journals mentions any of the immigrants having problems from Fort Bridger. And the Donners really didn't have any issues that's really mentioned. They had problems, but the big stuff hadn't hit yet until they get down here to the August 6th. Down around the little town of Hennifer, Utah, is kind of where things start going south for them. And we'll get to that on the third video of this. And I'll come back and we'll retrace the rest of their camps down through here as we go through those videos. But for now, I'm just going to go as far as here to their August 5th campground. And the only thing they really mentioned on August 5th, said they started early, traveled the whole day in Red Run Valley, and encamped below its entrance into Weaver Creek. Well, Weaver Creek is what we now know as Weaver River, or Weber River. And they say they camped just below the entrance. It'll be in this general area here. And when you get to this Echo Junction right here, you need to turn around and look back toward the interstate, and you'll see that would be the general area, kind of where they camped, was right in this area here. Just a little information that's kind of neat to know, that when you get there, you can just turn around and think, oh, well, they camped right in here somewhere. This, as I mentioned before, when the interstate and everything's there, but if you can kind of block all that out and just look at the mountains and the skyline and stuff like that, most of that's still the same. So now we'll get back to the journey going through Echo Canyon. Once you're done at Fort Bridger, you're going to want to hop on I-80 and head west, young man or woman. So we didn't stop at Cache Creek Cave. We just kind of blew on by it. And it was a popular, sightseeing place for immigrants. The national park pamphlet's going to tell you to drive on to exit 187, and then you're going to go about another half a mile to see the faint trail traces and the Carsonite sign. We never seen either one. We didn't stop. We didn't want to pull over on the side of a busy interstate. And besides, we were on the wrong side of the interstate. Once you see this here mileage sign, it's not too far after that you'll come to the area where the faint trail traces are. So it's right here in this general area where the trail would have come in to the I-80 corridor. So about this point, you're pretty much traveling the same thing they did way back when. And the Donner's first camp into Echo Canyon probably was maybe in this area right in here somewhere. We also kind of blew by Devil's Post Office and Brigham's Monument, Castle Rock and Pony Express Station, Winged Rock. Yeah, we kind of did. That's all kind of in an area. There's an old junkyard there, and we were going to do it, but decided we didn't want to. So here we're exiting off on exit 178 onto Echo Canyon Road, which the National Park pamphlet is going to have you do. And there's a little turnoff right up here to the right where you'll stop. There's a cattle guard there, and you're gonna zero out your odometer at this point right here. The next stop we came to was the Hanging Rock or Halfway Pony Express Station. Now, this one didn't have much of a place to park. You kind of had to get off the road the best you could. And there's a T-rail marker there. And if you want to get down to it, expect to walk through some kind of tall grass, because it's actually kind of like down in a swale of the old wagon trail. So if you head on around this curve up here, you'll come to the next stop, which is Hanging Rock. And all it is kind of like a little miniature arch. And the immigrants, I guess, use this as kind of a waypoint or a marker to let them know they're on the right path. So now we're going to head about 1.5 miles on down the road here. And we're going to come to the next stop, which is Jack in the Pulpit. And this is mentioned in both or all three of the pamphlets. And it's nothing more really than another waypoint for the immigrants. And if you go on past this just a little ways, you'll come to a driveway, and there you'll find a T-rail marker, and it just explains that this was a favorite camping area for the immigrants. So this is Jack in the Pulpit. Not really sure what it is, but it was a marker for the immigrants. I'm assuming that little rock on the end. And that's looking back the way they would have been coming from. This is Echo Canyon, and that's the way we're headed, and they would have been heading. And we are on the trail right here. Of course, that wouldn't have been cut out right there. Alright, so this was an area where the immigrants camped on Echo Creek. This is Echo Creek running right down there. So they would have camped here. You'll probably have to walk down into some tall grass to get to the T-rail marker. But it was out past the fence there. In that open meadow area there was where the campground area was for immigrants. After getting finished here, we hopped back in the car. We headed about 2 miles down the road and came to What's listed in the Lincoln Highway as stop number 7 was Sawmill Canyon. Now, this canyon was named after a sawmill that was located at the foot of the hills here. The sawmill provided railroad ties for the first transcontinental railroad, and Brigham Young and his company, returning from winter quarters, camped here on August 28th of 1858. I had to cut the audio out on this one because the train behind me was making so much noise you couldn't even hear what I was saying. So I apologize for that. Enjoy the music. After that, we jumped back in the car again and headed just a little bit further down the road, and it's just right about this Sawmill Canyon where the Echo Canyon starts to constrict, and the Mormon militia found this area as a good place to build breastworks for the Utah Wars, the Mormon Wars, where the U.S. government was going to come in and force Brigham Young out. It was a war that really never happened, but this is, if you can stop here at stop number 4 for the national park. Echo Canyon's number 6, and in Lincoln Highway it'll be number 8 and 9. And you can actually still see the stones that were stacked up back in 1857, I believe it was, where the Mormon militia had built these breastworks waiting for the invasion of the federal government. It's also in this general area where the Mormons actually made landmines out in a meadowish area, once again to thwart the advance of the oncoming federal soldiers. This is another spot where breastworks were built. Looks like you could hike up there even if you wanted to, but that's them right there. You can kind of see where they've dug into the rock and made their little breastworks. I don't know, is this the site where the guy died? So let's head on down the highway a little more. Not very far, maybe about a quarter of a mile. And we'll come to our next stop, which is Billboard Bluff. This is mentioned in all 3 pamphlets. Basically, it was a 19th century billboard, roadside billboard. Echo Canyon was a pretty popular thoroughway. And so here you have signs of 19th century advertisement billboards, and basically they're advertising plantation bitters. The painting is a little hard to make out nowadays. So let's head on down the road here. In just a short little hop, we're going to come to some more breastworks, which is mentioned in both the National Park and the Echo Canyon pamphlets. All right. Alright, so here there's supposed to be breastworks up there that the Mormons built. I don't see any. Maybe right there, I can't tell. Another train coming by. But I don't see none up there. Maybe over there. Alright, so somewhere up here are breastworks. I'm not seeing them nowhere. And the Mormons built them up there. That could be one right there by that tree. Those are different colored rocks there. I was going to walk back here and see if I could see anything back over here. There might be breastworks up there, maybe. I can't tell. But somewhere's up in there, they've built breastworks up there. Can't zoom in while something. And supposedly they built breastworks over there just below those old telegraph poles. I can't really see them either. So I don't know. But they built these breastworks here to, they were afraid the federal government was going to attack, and they were going to get them caught in a crossfire here down through this section of the canyon. But yeah, I sure don't see anything up there. That could be one there. So yeah, don't really know. Don't see anything. This is stop number, oh, they are numbered 6. Breastworks, ditches, and large trench, which I never did see, but it's up there somewhere. Now we're going to head on down the road a little bit further, not far, and we'll come to our next stop, stop number 5 on Echo Canyon. And this is going to be Death's Rock. And it was at this Death Rock that while they were building the breastworks, a couple of the Mormon militia guys were horsing around up on top of these rocks, and one of them, I guess, accidentally shot his buddy, and thus it got its name. There is Death Rock, where I guess when Mormons were building their fortifications, did this guy get shot or he fell? Okay, yeah, that's this right here.
Yeah, a fellow militiaman. They were.
So he got shot during horseplay, and then I guess after he got shot, he fell. Oh. So let's hop back in the vehicle and drive about another half a mile down the road or so, and we'll come to the next stops, which is National Park 7, Echo Canyon 4, and Lincoln Highway 13. And in this area, you're going to find a second billboard cliff. You'll also find where the Red Rock Dam was, and the Mormons had built a dam here to dam up Echo Creek. They flooded this little valley area to make it, once again, trying to thwart the efforts of the U.S. soldiers they thought would be coming in through here. It's also, if you look across, you'll see the Utah Visitor Information Center. If you have a chance to stop there, you can get a lot of information there on Echo Canyon. This is also the location of the Great Eastern, which was in Steamboat Rocks. All are mentioned in the 3 pamphlets, and once again they were just more waypoints, sites for the immigrants to know that they were headed the right way. So if you drive up the road just a little bit further past this, you'll come to a sign. It's one of the brown signs. It's not mentioned as far as a number in any of the pamphlets, and I think it's in the Echo Canyon pamphlet it does talk about this little sign, this little area, and it just mentions that it's the Great Republic, the rocks, called the Great Republic, and Steamboat Rocks. But it also mentions that in this little field out here is where in July 16th of 1847 that the Mormon vanguard, the advanced camp, that's where they camped at, was right in this area. Now we're going to jump back in the car, head on down Echo Canyon Road, and we're going to come to a little turnout on our left, and this will be the Echo Canyon 3 and the Lincoln Highway 4 stops. And basically it's the Echo Roller Mills. There's actually some little kiosks there, and it just talks about a grist mill that was in this location. So early settlers in this area had a mill down here for flour. Looks like 1871 there was a mill that set down here. And just a little bit further on down is going to be another stop. It'll be on your right. There is a place to pull off there, a little driveway like, and it's just mentioned in Echo Canyon, stop 2, Lincoln Highway, stop 15. And this is Monument Rock. And all this Monument Rock is just, like I said, just like a lot of these other rocks, they're just rocks and sites that the immigrants would use to know that, hey, we're on the right path, kind of like road signs. One of these is Monument Rock. I don't know which one. Oh, I bet that one right in the middle is. Monument Rock. So now you're going to continue on down the road just a little bit further again. The road's going to curve kind of about where the junction of I-84 and I-80 meet. And it's right at this curve you're going to see a pull out to your right, and it's going to be for stop number 8 in National Park, stop number 17 in Echo Canyon, and 26 for Lincoln Highway. And this is the Weber Pony Express Station and Wyman Waypoint. They have a really deep kiosk in this location. There's also a little trail behind the kiosk that you can take and go up on, and I suggest you do that. It gives you a good vantage point, and if you get up there and look back toward the junction of I-80 and I-84, that's going to be kind of the general location of the Donner Party's August 5th campsite. It's mentioned in the journal that started early and traveled the whole day in Red Run Valley. Remember, Red Run Valley is our Echo Canyon. and encamped below its entrance into Weber Creek. And it's also in this location where the Weber Pony Express station was, in this general area. Another thing that was kind of interesting for me was this was a Wyman, I guess is how you pronounce it, waypoint. He was the first guy to do a transcontinental bike ride, albeit a bike that had a gas motor on it. So this, as I was mentioning, is where the Donners in this area would have camped on August 5th. And this is also where Echo Canyon enters into what is known as Weber Canyon. Here, the Donners would have hung a right and gone on down Weber Canyon, heading toward the little town of Echo and out toward the town of Hennifer. So the Donner Party would have spent all day of August 5th traveling from the upper end of Echo Canyon down to where this point where Echo Canyon meets Weber Canyon. Then they would have camped here and headed on north on a following 84 track, Highway 84, Interstate 84, going north. And if you continue on Echo Road, that will take you on into the little town of Echo. And some interesting stuff here too. So if you go on into the little town of Echo, all the pamphlets talk about this little town. I think it was right in front of the post office. There's some kiosks there that basically talk about the history of Echo. A lot of history for this little town, especially when they were building the railroad. And if you can, I would suggest you go up to the church and the cemetery. The church is on the Register of Historic Buildings. A lot of interesting stuff there at the church/school. It used to be a school as well. And some really good history out in the cemetery as well.
There's some
This
kind
is
of
a
a...
ghost town.
Here's a cluster of interpretive wayside exhibits with some early history of the community. Where is it?
Echo Historic Church.
It looks like there's a flagpole and some doobie-doos.
I don't know, maybe this? No, there's a flagpole. It's,
Oh, yeah,
post
this is
office.
it. This is it.
Oh, there's the interpretive thing.
Yeah, okay. Oh, that'd be cool to get in the front of that with the zip code and everything. Bates Street, Echo City. There's a lot here.
Yeah.
There's those two things.
So after our little stop in Echo, we continued on up Echo Canyon Road, and we came to our next stop, which was Temple Camp and Supplication Hills, mentioned in all three pamphlets. And they have a nice little kiosk station there. So at the Supplication Hills, it's named for the prayers offered here back on July 17th of 1847 on behalf of Brigham Young and other members of the party who were seriously ill. So I guess the elders of the church went up on these hills and said prayers for all the sick folks in camp. So this is Supplication Hill and Temple Rock Amphitheater. So I guess those rocks over there are the spires. Doesn't say what hill they went up.
Where's the amphitheater?
I don't know.
I'm wondering if it wasn't like right in there.
It might have been. But they went up on one of these hills and prayed? Is that what they're saying?
Yes, because they were real sick. Brigham Young. Due to Brigham's illness, traveled only 2.5 miles. Their camp was 0.4 miles west of this marker on the east bank of the Weber River.
So it's back that way.
He was washed and anointed for a blessing of health. Then he fell into a deep sleep and awakened feeling much better. His prayers were answered. Okay, at about 2 p.m. on Saturday the 17th of July, 4 members of the quorum of 12 and 6 other brethren ascended the high and steep Supplication Hills to the northeast of this marker.
Northeast.
After walking about 2 miles from Temple Camp to the top of the mountain, they dressed for temple prayer and pled to the Lord in behalf of President Young and others who were sick in
So it
camp.
would have been right up
The
there.
saints who were following, and for their own wives and children who were left behind at winter quarters. Before rejoining the camp, they rode large. See, 13.1, look to the right to see the Witches' Rocks. This cluster of geological hoodoos was a minor landmark often sketched and described in immigrant journals. Nearby, a white fiberglass trail post marks the location of the Hastings Cutoff wagon trace. A couple miles ahead, the Donner Reed party faced a critical decision. So,
I bet that's what that trail out there is for. I'll guarantee them Mormons walk that. They put carts or something across there and walk. This is where he got healed or whatever, you know.
oh yeah, there's the hoodoos, is it? Is that Witches' Rocks? Are we at 13.1?
13. Up here on the hill.
How do you get up there?
Looks like there's a drive up there. If you're like me, you find this stuff pretty interesting. I mean, because, I don't know, you're just seeing the same stuff they seen, you know, and I don't know. It's just kind of cool. And you can figure the Donner Party was coming up through here. They would have seen these Witches' Rocks and all of this stuff on August the 6th, heading up Weber Canyon. So the next stop listed here is going to be the Weber River Crossing. And I'm not going to get into this one on this video. That will be the next video, because this is where the Donner Party woes begin. So be sure to come back, check out video number 3 when it comes out. And as always, thanks for watching.